All right, everybody, let's get started. So, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. This is Yao from Rutgers. Welcome to the first online doctoral workshop on supply chain analytics. So, up to this moment, we have 548 people registered from 17 different countries and nearly 200 universities. Now, because we have a large group, so I would like to ask everyone, if you are not a panelist or moderator, please mute your microphone and video. And if anyone has a question, you can type it in the chat box. Thank you. Now, let me introduce Dr. Nene, the Dean of Rutgers Business School, also a Big Ten school, to give an opening remark on the impact of COVID-19 and her expectations on job candidates and junior faculty. Let's welcome.
Thank you, Yao. I'm very happy to see you virtually, and thank you all for joining us at this important event. As we all know, the world has changed drastically during the past 2 months, changing the way we live, we teach, we recruit students, and imposing constraints on our faculty hiring process. However, business of a business school will be back and will be booming again, but in a different way. To launch a successful career as a faculty in supply chain management, there are two things every job candidate and junior faculty should keep in mind. To show your potential as a promising scholar of a business school at this time, and to show the value towards the strategic mission of the school you would like to work for. To show your potential as a promising scholar at a business school during this time, keep in mind that after COVID-19, many new research topics in supply chain analytics will emerge. The recent vulnerability of a supply chain due to COVID-19 will force people to rethink, redesign, reimagine their supply chain models, particularly for those supply chains that heavily rely on foreign suppliers to fulfill their raw materials and finished product, or foreign distributors to sell their product or service in an international market. This virus has certainly created a tsunami of challenges, from inventory shortage to demand uncertainty to poorly managed cash flow in global supply chain to badly disrupted customer service. As many of you may already heard, recently we experienced such a major shortage in supplies for PPEs to hospitals. So to academic scholars, these challenges are the opportunities for us to develop more scholarly work, not only publishable, but also relevant, impactful, and meaningful for improving supply chain practice and for a better world tomorrow. That's exactly what I mean by being a promising scholar at a business school, especially during this COVID-19 time. The second thing I would like to share is that being a productive and promising scholar at a business school is very important, but not sufficient. As a business school faculty, you also need to know your utility, your value toward strategic mission of your school to contribute. The digital era has fundamentally shifted the landscape of business education. and added more criteria for faculty evaluation. Why? To stay competitive, business schools, large ones or smaller ones, must be able to prepare students to become the workforce of the future. However, the reality is that when our students graduate, they will have to use technologies that are not necessarily covered fully in textbook and to solve problems that may not even exist today. That means every business school must be innovative in curriculum design, must accelerate the pace of change, and will have to count on its faculty to lead the effort. So no matter which business school you're with, having an innovative mindset and showing your potential value to contribute towards the strategic mission of the school will make you a strong candidate above all. So I wish you to have a productive event here. And I look forward to hearing more successful stories from you as a outstanding business school faculty, a young faculty in the near future. Okay, back to you, Ling.
Thank you, Dean Lei. Yao, do you have anything that you want to like
No, Lin, please.
announcements you would like to make before we start the panel?
Yes, please.
We can start.
Please start.
All right. Good. All right. Thank you everyone for joining us into this workshop. My name is Lingxiu. I'm a professor of operations and manufacturing management at Olin Business School, Washington University in St. Louis. I'm the moderator of the first panel of the workshop. So welcome again. The theme of the panel is the impact of COVID-19 on academic jobs. Well, faculty and doctoral students are normally interested in learning what the academic job market looks like in the coming year or in future years. That information can help us better prepare doctoral students for their career. This year, this particular question about job market is reckoning with many of us going beyond just doctoral students. While like many industries that are affected by COVID-19, higher education is facing its own set of challenges. So today we're so delighted to have a panel of business school deans and prominent senior scholars from different parts of the world to join us and share with us their perspectives about the impact of COVID-19 on academic jobs. So let me start by giving a brief introduction of our distinguished panel. We have 6 panelists, and I'll introduce them in alphabetical order. The first one, Professor Fangruo Chen. Fangruo Chen has been the Dean of the Anti-College of Economics and Management and the Dean of Industry Research Institute of Shanghai Jiaotong University since 2018. Prior to joining Shanghai Jiaotong, he was MUTB Professor of International Business at Graduate School of Business, Columbia University. Professor Chen has been engaged in the research of operations management, supply chain management, operation strategy, and has published numerous papers in the field's top journal. He has been actively serving the research communities through a variety of leadership positions, area editor for operations research, department editor for management science. He also served as the president of AmSom Society in 2006. In 2007, he founded the Overseas Chinese Scholars Association in Management Science and Engineering and served as the president of the association from 2007 to 2019. He holds a PhD degree from Wharton School, University of Pennsylvania. Thank you, Dean Chen, for joining us from China. Our next panelist I will introduce is Francis de Véricourt. Francis de Véricourt is chaired professor of management science at the Europe School of Management and Technology, ESMT, in Berlin. He was associate dean at ESMT and held faculty position at Duke and INSEAD, both in France and Singapore. He's the author of numerous academic articles in prominent management, analytics, and economics journals such as Management Science, Operations Research, American Economic Review, and others. He's currently the department editor of Analytics and Big Data at Inform's Service Science. Professor de Véricourt holds a PhD degree from University of Paris. Thank you, Professor de Véricourt, for joining us from Europe. Our next panelist, Serguei Netessine. Serguei Netessine is Vice Dean for Global Initiatives and Ambani Professor at Wharton School, University of Pennsylvania. He lived and worked in Russia, USA, France, and Singapore. His current research focuses on business model innovation and operational excellence. He worked on these topics with numerous government and Fortune 500 organizations. He serves on advisory boards of multiple startup companies and he's an active angel investor. Professor Netessine also regularly participates in industry and government organized forums on innovation and entrepreneurship, including World Economic Forum in Davos and World Knowledge Forum in Seoul. He was a member of the Future of the Economy Committee for Singapore government. Prolific academic writer, Professor Netessine holds senior editorial position at several leading academic journals, and he co-authored dozens of publications in prominent management journals. Professor Netessine holds a PhD degree from University of Rochester. Thank you, Professor Netessine, for joining us. Our next panelist is Piaw. Piaw is the Provost Chair Professor in National University of Singapore Business School, and currently the Executive Director of the Institute of Operations Research and Analytics, IORA, at NUS. He's a former Deputy Dean, Vice Dean of Research, and Head of the Department of Decision Science in NUS Business School. Piaw is former area editor in operations research for operations management and supply chain, and current department editor in management science for optimization. At IORA, he's leading a multidisciplinary team of scholars to develop new tools and theories for the science of prescriptive analytics, integrating data into model development and decision-making. And this multi-million-dollar project is funded by the Ministry of Education in Singapore. Professor Piaw holds a PhD degree from MIT. Thank you, Professor Piaw, for joining us from Singapore. Our next panelist, Yunzeng Wang. Yunzeng Wang is the Dean of the School of Business at the University of California, Riverside since 2011. He previously served on the faculty at Case Western Reserve University and at UT Dallas. Dean Wang's research interests including supply chain management, technology acquisition and adoption strategy, US-China economic development, trade, stochastic optimization, game theory. He serves as senior editor and associate editor at our field's top journals and has consulted for many US and international firms. Dean Wang holds a PhD degree from Wharton School, University of Pennsylvania. Thank you, Dean Wang, for joining us. Okay, our next panelist is Oliver Yao. Oliver Yao is the Associate Dean for Graduate Programs, College of Business, Lehigh University. His research interests are in the interdisciplinary fields of information systems, supply chain management, including business values of IT-enabled supply chain, economics of electronic commerce. His publications have appeared and are forthcoming in the field's top journals. He received a Plowman Award from Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals in 2007. It's a prestigious award in the supply chain management field, and a Belderman Research Award at Lehigh. He received the MBA Excellence in Teaching Award at Lehigh University in 2015. He also received Alan Nash Distinguished Doctoral Graduate Award from University of Maryland in 2017. He's the Associate Editor at Information System Research and a Senior Editor at PALM. Dean Yao holds a PhD degree from University of Maryland. Thank you, Dean Yao, for joining us. And thank you again, our 6 distinguished panelists for joining us. And next, I will invite each panelist to give a brief sharing of their perspective about the short-term and long-term impact of COVID-19 on academic jobs. And after that, we'll enter the Q&A session. And we'll collect questions for the Q&A session from the chat box. So workshop attendees, please feel free to enter your questions in the chat box. Okay, let's start the panel sharing from Dean Chen, Fangruo. Is Fangruo here?
Yes, here.
Yes, Fangruo is here.
Oh,
Fangruo.
maybe, did you turn on your audio? It is the first circle on the screen.
Yeah, Fangruo, your video is mute.
Okay, is it okay now?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yes.
But we
Okay.
cannot see you.
You cannot see me.
Oh, we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see myself.
Yeah, we can see you. Yeah.
Can you see me?
Oh.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Hello from Shanghai. I've been here for the past 5 months and not going anywhere. Staying put here. But we're lucky that life is getting back to normal, and students are returning to campus. But obviously, you know, we have been teaching online since March, early March. The short-term impact is for us is really doing everything online. I think, and our university, you know, reacted to the situation quite quickly, and we basically got every class online within a week. And so far, so good. So the online teaching has been going well. But as I said, life is beginning to return to normal. And if you walk on the streets, you see lots of people, and people are fairly relaxed now. Now, in terms of academic job markets, so perhaps we are lucky here. Our finances are still doing pretty well, and so there's no hiring freeze here. In fact, we are going to expand our hiring pretty soon. So I just actually wrote an advertisement today. You know, looking for great candidates at all levels. So there are faculty positions in all areas in our school, and we encourage you know, applications from excellent candidates. In terms of program, in terms of our MBA and EMBA programs, the impact has been postponed classes, I would say. Really, in terms of enrollment, we don't see too much impact. So it's just basically a lot of courses are postponed because these part-time students don't want to see teaching too much teaching online. So I guess that is temporary. The impact there, I think, will diminish as we go along. So and we expect, you know, enrollment to return to normal. pretty quickly. The only big impact in terms of enrollment is obviously international programs. So, so our international students are where they are. They cannot come to Shanghai. So, but luckily, that international program with international students is only a small part of our overall program, and therefore the impact is quite manageable. So in short, we are getting along. We are doing a lot of things online, and we look forward to face-to-face teaching pretty soon. And in terms of hiring, there's as far as I can see, there's really not much negative impact in terms of faculty hiring. Okay, I'll say so much, and I'll come back if necessary later.
All right. Thank you, Dean Chen, for your perspective from China. Okay, next, let's invite Professor de Véricourt. How about the perspective from Europe?
So hi, everyone. First, thank you for inviting me on this panel, and it's great to see friends I've not seen for a long time, even if it's only online. Let me before I jump on the job market and the business situation, let me say a quick word about the COVID-19 and the epidemics. And I want to point out something very fundamental, I think, for us at the field, that fighting COVID is, in the end, and we see that every day, is not a medical problem. We don't have drugs, we don't have vaccines. We may have vaccines too late. This is what happened with SARS. They started to develop the vaccines, but the epidemic was done when the vaccine was even not ready. And in fact, if you look at, it's a recurring thing. I mean, you have SARS in 2003. I mean, swine flu is a bit different. We had some vaccines. You have MERS, you have Ebola, now you have COVID. So we should not be surprised, and we should expect these recurring type of virus that are coming from animals, basically, to come back and to find ourselves with the situations where we don't have the drugs, we don't have the vaccines to fight it. And the war to fight it is a war of supply chains and logistics. And we are fighting each other as countries and all that, and state in the US for just masks, for plastic bottles, for all sorts of things that we take it for granted. And all those things are operations 101. Even if you think about it, flattening the curve, it's what we teach to our MBA. It's how do you manage congestion, you're smoothing demand. So in the end, what I'm trying to say that, and I'm building on what Dean Slay said before, it's not only after the crisis that there will be a lot of research topic for supply chain. The answer to this type of disease is going to be, by and large, operations. I mean, I'm going to give you an example in Europe. One of the big issues that Europe faced, Germany and even France faced at the beginning of the pandemic, it was masks, of course, but it was also plastic bottles, because they had the hand sanitizers, the hand gels, but they didn't have the bottles to fill them up, to use them. So things that we take for granted, that cheap, and we understand that as a community, we understand this issue. I mean, pharmacists, people in the street could not comprehend why that was the issue. So what I'm trying to say is, as a field, and especially for the upcoming PhD students, it's not, I strongly believe that it's not that they are going to be part of the solution, but the idea, the new process, the new model they can come up with to fight this disease is going to come from our community, or can come from our community. And let me add one small thing about COVID. It's not a data-driven decision-making process, because there's absolutely, I mean, very few data points. Countries are at loss. It's a model-based decision-making. So it's, I mean, I know I'm going to go against a bit the empiricist, and I think it's very important, but here we are facing situations where we can say something not as precise, but because we have the epidemiology models, but also flattening the curve is in itself model. It's based on matching demand and supply with all the frameworks and the tools for that. So it's a great time. I mean, even though it's a tough time, but it's a great time where, as a community, operations research in general, modeling, analytics can come up with answers that our doctors colleagues, and my wife is one, are struggling with. That the answer is going to be you, not I'm too old now, I guess, but you, the community and young faculty, to find some of the answers to that. Now, moving to the business situation and the hiring situations, obviously the impact of the disease is going to affect a business school differently. I can talk a bit about HEC in Paris, but mostly about ESMT here. In a weird way, some programs have seen an increase in enrollments, especially the Master in Management. We are not sure yet if they will be able to come. What we understand is that Germany appears thus far, things may change very fast, but thus far as a safe haven to some extent, where it's still possible to have visa down the road. So we see in those programs a lot of demand, a lot of people who already have paid deposit. In the MBA program, I think we see a bit what Fangruo was mentioning. The enrollment is not affected directly, but people postpone. So they want to come and they say we're coming in 2021. The big part of the business that is affected is executive education, of course, and especially the executive MBA program. All those programs that are based on traveling, people come for a module and then they go back to their work. That is where we see really the pain. And executive education from companies, people are postponing, but there's some cancellations as well. So overall, as far as the ESMT is concerned, financially is okay. It had a good buffer. It should not last for 2-3 years, obviously, but we can absorb the shock. That being said, and we go back to the recruitment, we have frozen the recruitment, the hiring. So we don't go to the market, to the job market, but we try to have a more strategic approach. So if we see candidates that we really like, it can be also junior, senior, we then approach them directly and try to make an offer now, because we know soon, because we know there will be less competition. Usually we're competing with the US market, which is hard for us. So we see that as an opportunity. And if by January we see that the business is coming back, even slightly, but we see the trend, then we will go probably more full-fledged. And with a delay, of course, I think for November, we're not going to be very aggressive, but if it's coming back January, February, we may also try to reach out candidates. Yeah, that's about it. Thanks for having me, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
Thank you, Professor de Véricourt, for your perspective from Europe. And next, let's have Professor Netessine come back to US. Professor Netessine, share with us your perspective.
All right, thank you, Ling. Good morning, everyone. I will talk a little bit about kind of my perspective mostly from US schools, I guess. I think in US, the situation with the job market is going to be very, very difficult. I'm very glad to hear that things are better in China and in Europe. As far as I can tell, pretty much every single school in the United States announced hiring freezes for the coming year. I don't think it's going to get any better at this point. The schools are suffering. Executive education revenue is down. Lots of schools started announcing now that they're going to postpone their fall semesters. That means degree program revenues are going to go down. So if you read Poets and Quants, you see that Harvard has $100 million revenue shortfall. You would think that top school as Wharton wouldn't be that much affected, but it actually is affected in a very, very major way. We have all kinds of budget cuts, hiring freezes, not only for faculty, also for staff. And we have all kinds of research funding reduced. And as a member of the executive management team at Wharton, we constantly discuss other ways to reduce our budget for the upcoming year. This is probably not the end of it, because as you probably read in the news, there are lots of students arguing and even suing schools, trying to reduce tuition rates, because they argue that online education should not cost as much as face-to-face education. So I think we're going to see budget shortfalls for the foreseeable future, not just this year, but also probably next year. So this is all a really, really bad news for students who are planning to go on the job market. I would encourage all of you to look broader beyond US schools, because US schools are going to be in a bad situation for a while. Moreover, there is additional concern, which is, are we going to even have Informs conference, which is traditionally kind of a leading to job search of candidates. So Academy of Management conference has been canceled, and it's been scheduled for August. I am not very optimistic that we will have a proper Informs conference this year, which means it's not clear how to even search for jobs. Many countries, Department of State, US Department of State in many countries is not even scheduling appointments to issue visas anytime soon. So you might not even be able to get a visa to come to US in the first place. And probably many states are going to be on kind of a semi-closed regime for the foreseeable future. So I don't have a lot of good news, unfortunately, for the students coming on the job market. What does this mean? You have to probably think about, so first think broader about where you apply. Second, think broader maybe about postdoc positions. Think about maybe temporary postdoc positions at high-tech companies, which are doing pretty well. Amazon is doing quite well. Google is doing quite well. Microsoft is doing quite well, so maybe this will become an attractive option in the next couple of years, unfortunately. Beyond that, I would highly encourage you to visit operationsacademia.org, which is a website that I helped start at some point. I'll share it in chat. Register your interest in the job market, see the news, see surveys for the past years, and good luck to everyone.
Thank you, Professor Netessine, for your sharing from the U.S. school perspective. Now let's move out of U.S. Professor Piaw, what do you see the impact on the academic jobs from a school operating in Southeast Asia and also has a global reach? Chung Piaw, can you turn on your audio?
Chen Piaw?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Thank you. Thank you for having me. First, I must start by saying that the things in Singapore is actually far from normal. So we are in the midst of a lockdown. So I've not been able to go back to office for the last 6 weeks. 2 more weeks to go. And you can see that over the last 6 weeks, I've been doing a natural experiment, trying to grow a natural face mask on my face, but not too successful. But I wanted to start by my sharing session by conveying this message from senior management. I don't know whether I can share a slide.
You can. Can you?
Hear me? See the slide?
Yes.
So just one slide here. I want to start with this message from my senior management from NUS. In fact, over the last 6 weeks, we have been trying to strategize to plan for the post-COVID-19 world. So our belief is that the new normal will be very different moving forward. And the university right now is actually strategizing to to basically to create a better post-COVID-19 world with the university. So the good news to the job candidate is that, in fact, the university has planned to actually scale out the recruitment efforts. So we believe, let me quote my provost in his message, the new PhD graduates and the postdoc researchers are entering a very tough job market. So we will continue, our motto is to continue to hire new talents. So we are hoping to invest in the next generation of scholars to help them really realize their full potential for a better post-COVID-19. So I think most schools in Singapore, I have checked with a couple of my counterparts in Singapore, there's no hiring freeze in the local institution. In fact, there are plans for several places to step up the recruitment efforts. But of course, it's in only selected areas. In the NUS context, I think the key focus over the next few years will be in the analytics space. Now, I think many schools in Asia is actually helped by the fact that our funding model is driven largely by the local demand. So our faculty lines are mainly determined by the size of the undergraduate enrollment. So this part of the demand is not much affected by COVID-19. But of course, the external research funding sources in the foreseeable future will be going down. Now, I want to talk about the impact on the programs. I think most business schools are going through the same struggle to move courses online. But I want to the new PhD students, I just want to have share some thoughts on how to be successful in the job market. I think to be a successful business school professor, you need to, your research topics, your body of knowledge must be timely. So what is timely? Your research topic, in a sense, must address the key concerns of the business world moving forward. So the post-COVID-19 supply chain, the digital transformation that is, I think, scaling up in many companies. These are the key issues that will dominate I believe, the business research fields. And if your topics, if your skills can be put to good use in this particular problem domain, I suspect you will be hotly sought after. Now, in fact, I view this COVID-19 as a chance for the junior people to come in and do something great, because many companies we are working with told us that they are facing a great reset in many sectors, like Singapore Airlines, the cloud jewel in Singapore, local companies. I guess you all know the airline sectors are all facing tsunami, and Singapore Airlines right now is even trying to redesign its entire operations, redo its revenue management system, in part because the post-COVID-19 world will be very different for the airline industry. In Singapore context, it will be very different for many other sectors such as construction industry, so on and so forth. So I see there's a chance, a host of great opportunities for junior scholars to do great work. So to enhance your chances of employment, I want to urge you to continue to explore this line of thinking. That's all.
Thank you, Professor Teo. Next, let's come back to the US and let's have Dean Wang from UC Riverside to talk, maybe share perspective from schools on the West Coast.
Hello, everyone. It's great to see many friends. After so long, I have not been going to conferences, and I wish all of you and your family be safe and healthy, and I'm sure you'll be okay all by the end. You have health and be safe. Yeah. I want to comment on the budget and the hiring impact of this COVID-19. First, more from a state school's point of view, right? And at Netessine, provide some perspective on a private school, especially in US. Yeah, mine maybe have some representation from the US state school's point of view. Yeah. For the last few months, for sure, the campus is heavily working on the budget issue, and the budget have implication on everything. Yeah, the most important thing they are struggling is uncertainty. In the long term, we know it's going to be over and we will come back. But in the short term, it's a huge uncertainty. For a state school, our budget mostly depends on three areas. One is the state budget for University of California is about 40%. And then we rely on tuition. That's maybe another 40%. And the rest rely on research and philanthropy. Talk about uncertainty. California, you know, you always know California. When it's good, it's the best. When it's bad, it's worst. So our budget situation is keep moving. A few months ago, the governor said, hey, University of California, you may get as much as what we gave you last year. That's 3 months ago, but as of this month, you may be telling us, no, we're going to cut you by 10%, but we cannot decide here yet. We're going to tell you the final number by August or September. So our hope is that we're going to get a 10% cut, don't go further worse. But the economy, so how fast it will recover, right? Again, California, when it's bad, it's really bad. So that's pretty sure we're going to get a 10% minimum cut. On the tuition side, the problem is that I think this is also unique to many of the US schools. We are heavily rely on international students. Yeah, lots of money, lots of people. We enjoyed that. But for sure, as you can see, the international student for next year basically gone, right? They either postpone or not come. For many schools, that's maybe 20% or 30% of their student. That's a huge cut. Yeah. Even domestic students, local students, again, if you most likely going to be online for the fall, even domestic students, they may postpone their enrollment. So the situation is pretty dire. Yeah. So when you face this kind of budget cut situation, what you do, the first thing is that you try to cancel or postpone your hiring. This year, since February, the chancellor have been telling us, yeah, if you can save any dollar you can, you'll be thank yourself. And if any position is to cancel it, postpone it, yeah, that's what we did. In my school, we had 3 faculty position was searching. We canceled one, we hired one, another one we gave an offer to come in 1 year later. For next year, it's pretty guaranteed we'll have no hiring. Yeah. So I hope this won't affect this as more than 2 years. That is, after next year, you may have another year or 2 at most. So that's the hiring side, right? Internally, for sure, our current faculty, our PhD students are affected. And you know, within a school, typically you cut, how you cut, you first cut the non-essential. PhD students is always the first cut. So we are going to stop admitting PhD students this coming year. And the next is your faculty support. We're going to take some cut on their summer support and their research support. We have been doing well. I think the faculty will understand the situation. So we have been pretty generous in providing summer support and research support. To take some cut is, it will be okay. They will be okay on that, right? So as I said, in the short term, it's going to be difficult. But I don't think this will last very long. Maybe affecting us for 3 years. This will come back. And for the current people who are looking for a job, it's going to be difficult. But on the other hand, I just think this will come out fine. I remember when I was looking for a job, that was a 10-year or 5 years period, job market is bad. This may come for 3 years, But also remember, after 2 or 3 years, we will come back strong. The school will try to catch up, a student will come up. They may suddenly find, Scott, I don't have faculty, I need to hire many faculty. So please hang on there, as Netessine suggested, right? Take some temporary positions, visiting positions, postdocs. If nothing else, work on your research, improve your kind of teaching, whatever, you can make a contribution to a school. I think we'll all be fine. Thank you again for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, Dean Wang, for sharing your perspective. And next, let's have Dean Oliver Yao to share a perspective from a private research university.
Thank you, Ling. Thank you, everyone. Good morning. I think I represent a little bit different from the first 5 panelists. My Lehigh University is a small, very small private institution. So my perspective is more like from a small private institution. Lehigh only has 5,000 undergraduate students and 2,500 graduate students, so very small in scale. But I share the same negative sentiments with Professor Netessine and Professor Wang as well. I'm very pessimistic about the situation in the U.S. right now. Even from, they represent a large state school and a top elite Wharton school, and I'm represent a small private school, but our sentiment seems to be almost the same. I manage all the graduate programs in the business school, so I work on daily basis looking at the numbers, interests, enrollment, yields, melts. I can tell you that for the past half year, and particularly after this pandemic, and the situation has got really, really, really bad. The good news actually for the past month is that we did see a surge in interest in our MBA programs in the past month. This is probably due to the unemployment rate, went up, and a lot of people start looking at MBA programs. We did see that, but our specialty master programs, the yield rate has been really, really low. If you think about the specialty master programs for all the universities pretty much in the US, we're largely rely on international students. And we make so many offers and they just don't commit. And they commit, then they forfeit. And many, actually, we made quite a handsome profits from the deposits. A lot of students, they said, okay, I deposit, I accept the offer. And then once the COVID-19 came, they said, I don't want to come anymore. So we made a little bit of money out there, but that's not ideal situation, right? So if you take a look at bigger picture, most of university, when they make decisions on hiring faculty members, and it's mostly supported by new programs and growing student enrollments for the most universities. And the past 20 years, and the new programs, the specialty master program, a lot of them, and they are flourishing, and that's supported our hiring growth for the past 15, 20 years, pretty much. And I'm afraid that that may have come to an end, and maybe come to an end for quite a bit of time, not just 1 year or 2 years. I'm a little bit pessimistic. I just want to put it out there for all the students or other my colleagues to think about. Even before this pandemic, and the university leadership and administrators, they are worried about the enrollment, undergraduate students enrollment already. A lot of small private university, they have already got into trouble because of low enrollment. If you think about, statistics show that the rising college age population has been declining significantly over the years. And 2026 is the year with the lowest school age population in the US. 2026 is 2008 plus 18. So that's a financial crisis. And that year, the birth rate was really, really low. And then that led to 2026 will be the lowest for many, many years. And a lot of small private school, they worry about undergraduate enrollment, and right now it's declining. 2026 will be the lowest. Now, then in the past few years were okay because that was complemented by international students. There's an influx of international students that made up a lot of students. And then suddenly, because of pandemic, the international students are not coming anymore. So this is like a double negative effect over here. I don't see, personally, I know I'm pessimistic about the next few years. And unless we can still attract more international students, we may have to wait until 2026 until the population start picking up, then to see the growth. So if for that case, the opportunity always comes with a crisis, right? But in this case, may not be for the U.S. institutions. And I heard from earlier panelists that from Singapore, from China, and from Europe, and looks like there's a great opportunity for the institutions in their countries. Maybe that's for our PhD students right now. And I think Professor Netessine also made that comment that they should consider non-US institutions as well, have a broader mindset, and also take look at the postdoc positions, and as well as take a look at the private sectors as well, and just be open-minded as for industry to work on, kind of job to work on, and also the locations to work on. Thank you very much. That's my quick comments.
Thank you, Piaw, for your sharing, and I want to thank all panelists for their sharing and authenticity in their sharing, objective view of the future. The PhD students that are attending this workshop, I think they are students who are graduating in the next 1 or 2 years. So what job market perspective looks like in the next few years is very, very important to them. And also another group of students would be, more on the junior side. They just entered the PhD program for, 1 year, 2 year, or about to start. And they're thinking, maybe I can wait out. I can wait out a couple of years, 5 years, or even 6 years, this thing will pass. But then the question to them would be how we're going to be prepared for the post-COVID-19 world. In terms of my research ability, in a way of doing research methodology, and in terms of teaching, right? So I think they are sort of a mixed audience, and maybe also have a junior faculty who are on the tenure clock and thinking about what is the implication on my research, what research is going to be published, what kind of teaching skills that's going to be much appreciated. So I do have a few questions from our audience. And I think one of those probably is from the more kind of on the senior side students asking what would be the best guess for 2021 job market. It's going to be uncertain, but is there any guess for 2021 job market? And also another question, I think related to our panelists' comments in terms of where can we go geographically go to different parts of the world and other than US, Asia, Europe, or job market. Well, maybe industry. Go to industry to be a scientist, a research scientist, or postdoc. The question is, how will school view this? Is it usually it's typically it's difficult to come back. Get back to academic from industry, but this is different. So going to industry, would that make it hard to come back to academic, or no? So these are the two questions from one attendees about perspective forecast for 2021, a year from now, and coming back from industry to academic. Any panelists want to comment on these?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, I can say a few words. Think, right, depends on each individual person faces a unique situation of their own, right? So what I say that, right, the U.S. market is going to be pretty bad next year for sure, maybe last 2 years minimum, right? But I know as an international student come to this country myself, many of us who have some kind of priority, say I want to get some experience in the US, maybe that's important. But at the same time, the world is changing compared to, I'm very old, compared to 30 years ago. At that point, even I don't have a visa, I will stay in the US. Wash dishes, try to stay in the US. But now it's different, right? Many parts of the world, like Asia, China, right? It's pretty good. They provide good research environment, and the salary benefits is not bad. And before we say that we want to stay in the US, and because if I go to China or Asia, it's hard to come back. That situation is also changing. Like we hire faculty from all over the world. And if you work from other part of the world, as long as you prove you can be a good contributor on research, on teaching, on service, we hire from everywhere. Right? I think it should be more open-minded in that sense. Right? Again, the short term in the US would be difficult.
I mean, if I can jump in about the question, if I go to the business world, is it going to be difficult to come back to academia? I think that business schools and universities are very well aware that this is a special situations. And I would agree with what Serguei and others said. I mean, like probably the best things to do right now is probably to take cover one way or another. I think in Berlin at least, I don't see. Of course, if the rest of the world is super affected, Germany is going to be affected as well, and there's many other risks in front of us. But thus far, there's still some hope that we will hire some people. Now we are small, and there's not so many universities who are international and who are interested in calibers of the PhDs that are listening to this panel. But I think taking cover, publishing if you can, or advancing your research at the same time, everybody will understand that. In a weird way, maybe I'm more worried about not his current generation, but probably the next one who are going to be on the job market, where a lot of people will maybe be done with their postdoc, or maybe in 2 years, and will have better publication record maybe in the meantime. So it's going to create for not the immediate one, but the one coming up, it's going to be really, really tough. And maybe some of the PhD students today will take teaching job, and they will have teaching experience, which is going to be much more valuable in the future than it was in the past. I mean, teaching has becoming more important over the years, but I think so. It's more for year -2, -3 that I can see overall some congestion with people with a better record. But it's true that I would not hide that at least the SMT in Berlin has some hope to take advantage of the situations and to try to, if things goes according to plan, and there's still a big if, so everything can change very fast, that we will be in a positions to attract a very, very, very good candidate that we will typically lose to the we will interview, but then they will, of course, they are good. They will find a great job in the US. So we may want and be able to take advantage of that. That's our hope. We'll see.
Thank you. Thank you, Yunzeng. Thank you, Francis. So so just a comment. So here it's the students who who are graduating in the next year or two probably can see this as even going to industry seems to be an opportunity to maybe strengthening your research in terms of, more practice-driven applied research, and students who maybe get a teaching position can strengthen on the teaching side. When you come back, in a way, you're stronger than the PhD students who graduate that year, fresh out of the program. You're more experienced and more mature. So this can be opportunity. Seems like an opportunity for for students who are graduating this year and next year. But I think then the next question relevant to the students who are earlier in the program, how they're going to be prepared, how are they going to prepare for post COVID-19 in terms of research, in terms of teaching. So Francis mentioned there are new research problems relevant. So in terms of research topics, supply chain management, in a highly uncertain world, in terms of the whole supply chain can be disrupted simultaneously. And Chung Piaw mentioned supply chain, analytics related, prescriptive analytics, what kind of a methodology driven kind of a research, and these two going to be relevant. So then the question is it going to be the way we do research, we conduct research, is it going to be different, somewhat different from previous pre-COVID-19 in terms of should we be collaborating more with industry, right? We do our dissertation. This is actually not a problem that we come up by reading articles. It should be a problem that we collaborate with industry partners. So, for example, we might have more interdisciplinary collaboration, even with medical school, right, and with just industry. So, I think it's a good question to ask our panelists. What do you see as a type of research that will be appreciated by research communities, of course, and also by the society, by the business? At the end of the day, it is it's a work that is of value to the society, to businesses, that will prove to be highly appreciated and desired. But how we're going to do things differently or maybe same? Any comments on that? That will help, I think, the students in a wide spectrum how to prepare. Any comments?
Ling, I'll say a few words.
Yes, please, Fangruo.
All right, this is obviously a great point. In China, again, I'm speaking from the perspective here. In fact, about a year ago, the society seems to be putting a microscope on what universities do, and people start questioning, what contribution we are making to the advancement of society, and this coronavirus seems to make that point even more salient. So people are dying in this crisis, and lots of people have written a lot of papers on all kinds of virus related topics, and they have no solutions. And this might be a stretch, but from where it's coming, it is quite understandable. I mean, people have spent lots of money doing research, and if I remember correctly, I think my colleagues at Wharton have done some data analysis, and I think there's I may get this wrong. It's like $40,000 invested per paper published, or something like that. It's a big number, and basically, and people are questioning, what's the real purpose of these academic papers. And so what I'm trying to say here is that even in China, universities have been pursuing publications in a very big way, and the country started to ask the question, is this really the right model for research universities? So, I guess this is, to be fair, I think there's some point here in asking this question. And so, for PhD students in the pipeline, I think the society in the future will be even more demanding. I think it's not just published in top journals, and that's good enough. Perhaps proving yourself that it's relevant. It's relevant for practice. It's something that will have some impact in real life. So the good news is that there will still be huge demand for great research. It's as being said earlier, there are tons of interesting questions to be studied. So that's the good news. The bad news is obviously you need to be really good. It's publishing just for academic purposes. Perhaps it's not enough. Somehow you need to demonstrate that connection to real life. And so as Shanghai Jiaotong, we are doing something specifically to address this challenge. So Ling mentioned earlier this Institute of Industry Research, and within the Antai School. So we are trying to encourage people to go out, our faculty and students, and collaborate with industries. And so far so good. We have teams, cross-disciplinary teams, working on various industries. And the larger society begins to see that there are things that we can do, maybe even doing better than some of the consulting firms. So there are great opportunities, but we need to make some effort. Okay, that's all from me. Yeah.
I just want to add a couple words on Fangruo's point. Fangruo mentioned practical relevance. What I learned, what I was surprised, from this pandemic was how fast our medical community, academic community, they can publish their papers. They publish their papers within a few weeks and a month at longest. And for our discipline, and paper go through a review process, take a few years to get published, and then the practical relevance will be gone by then, right? Because whatever the interesting story today may not be interesting anymore 3 years later. So probably from the pandemic, what we as a community need to learn is that how can we really get our research out as soon as possible. We're not talking about years. Can we talk about a few weeks? Something like that.
I mean, on that, sorry to jump in, but on that, there is also controversy in the medical field right now about the fact that a lot of the fast track articles you mentioned are not in the end, very valuable. So there is some discussions among the medical doctors about what is the value. It's like they are super fast, and then so I'm with you, and especially in operations, we should demonstrate as a field that we can have a fast review cycle, and many people have been pushing for that in the different journals. But it's not necessarily, it's not all rosy in the medical field either. And so let me just build up a little bit, and I really agree. I mean, this is what I said at the beginning with Fangruo, to say that this epidemic demonstrates usually supply chain as a society, you don't realize it there because it's working fine. It's like your IT system, typically. It's like, and it's an advantage, people have, there's competitive advantage to have a good supply chain, but society does not realize because it's working. It's when it's broken that you see that your life depends on it. And I think, again, as supply chains, operations research more broadly, it's a great opportunity, again, not to be part of the solution, I'm insisting on that, but to be the solutions to this type of new disease that are coming up. I've never been, in my old career, so interviewed and people contacting me from the epidemiology community to ask for advice about the operations research aspect of these things, because I don't want to say they have no clue, but we have our frameworks that we have been developing that are working, and we can still continue to innovate, and there's much more to do. But that's really for society, just epidemiology and tackling these type of issues, where we could be and we should be, I think, as a field, as a forefront. And it's not only the supply chain. I mean, so here it's also how you, and you see that in the US, and you see that in every country, how you provide a message, how you provide information to the populations. Now, it's not supply chain, but behind it, the right framework is information design type of models, and behind it, it is operations research 101. It's a DP, classical DP. So what I'm saying is that, broadly speaking, operations analytics, we have the tools to provide answers that I know epidemiologists, doctors, politicians are facing. We are the center of that answer as a field. So will in 1 or 2 years society continue to recognize it? I don't know, but I know for sure that in 5 years there will be another COVID. That for sure. Is it going to be a big splash? I don't know, but for sure, every 3-5 years we have two things. So every 3-5 years, the world will be reminded of us as a community.
Ling?
Yes.
Can I share my perspective? Do we have time?
Okay. We have just a little bit time, but please go ahead. This is interesting.
So
Please
first,
go ahead.
I think I want to add to the point that I think one thing that left a deep impression on me is to see the U.S. politician talking about supply chain on national TV. I think this is left a very deep impression on me. Sorry, and I think in future to the PhD students, I suspect when you do supply chain research, you have to be mindful that they are supply chain research and they are also supply chain research. So if you want to work on supply chain, make sure you work on supply chain that matters. Supply chain that matters to the society, that matters to the company. And this is how you get companies' engagement. This is how you get data, and this is how you do field experiments. So I think pointing out finding the truly important problems that people care about, I think is the very first step if you want to do supply chain research. I don't want to see everyone doing COVID supply chain. I think that is not.
Sorry.
No. I think we should focus on supply chain that matters. That's my point.
It seems that it's broken up.
That's all I have.
Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you, Piaw. Okay. Yes, thank you. Thank you everyone for your sharing. We are a little bit over time for this session. This is a really interesting discussion, and it was our hope that the participant of this workshop will leave the workshop with a positive mindset and some concrete ideas that can help them prepare for the future. I think this panel delivers that, and they are, of course, sad reality and pessimistic view in the near term because of these numbers and the facts. But I think there are ways to deal with it, like our panelists are shared with us, and from different schools, from different geographic locations. Even in the near term, despite all the dark regions, we still have a few bright spots in the world, and how we're going to prepare for the world in the future. So thank you for the advice from our panelists, from our scholars and the leadership, and we're grateful for your sharing. Thank you very much. And let's end the first panel of this morning. Again, thank you.